Hey guys, this is the Plan C podcast. You already know what it is. It's Cameron and your boy.
Colin!
Yep, we're here. New week, new topics. Today we're going to be talking about the commodification of time and how continuous progress has affected our minds and will kind of affect people in the future.
Also, just wanted to say, happy Thanksgiving to you guys. I know we are now recording the day after, and when this drops, it'll be a week after, but we hope everyone had a great holiday. Hope you spent it with friends, family, whoever else, all your loved ones. Thank you to you guys for liking, sharing, listening even. We appreciate it all. Just wanted to plug the email, Instagram, and Twitter here. For Instagram, it's at plan_C_podcast. Same thing for Twitter. And for the email, it's plancpod@gmail.com. Send us any suggestions you have, feedback, literally anything. We would love to hear it. Also, today, we're going to talk a little bit about the New Orleans Saints and the victory they had last night in Atlanta. Also, just wanted to mention that we are also going to be uploaded to YouTube by the time this is uploaded to all streaming platforms, which will be Thursday, 3 p.m. And yeah, it should be a great show, guys. Enjoy. All right, man. What was your favorite part of your Thanksgiving this year?
My favorite part of this Thanksgiving, probably besides hanging out with y'all, was, well, maybe equally too, was I sat down, made some mac and cheese with my pops.
Nice.
You know, we talked about theories and stuff like that. It's actually how I came up with this theory for this pod after we watch a documentary.
Are you suggesting you did this last minute? And by you, I mean we.
It is possible, but for any of the viewers that are in my African art class, y'all know I talked about this before, so I do have some evidence.
There's some prior knowledge there.
Some prior knowledge there. Yeah. Some work been done.
So, what was this documentary about?
The documentary was about a factory that was owned in America, that was owned by China. So China took over. China wanted to make a factory, but they were using American workers, and it was about. Yeah, it was like kind of weird, right? But it was like Chinese culture in the factory with American workers, and it was like a lot of tugs and pulls and conflicts. But it was kind of fascinating in some ways.
Interesting.
I mean, it ended up successful, but they didn't tell you how, so fuck that. But
so how?
Oh, sorry.
So how did this factory lead you to this idea?
Well, the factory, one of the big problems was that the Americans had previously lost their factory jobs due to automation, outsourcing, etc. And when they got to their new job, they were very unhappy. Even though they weren't working for 4 years or whatever, they hadn't had any income, and they got the new job, and the first thing was like a lot of like complaining, and not necessarily unrightful complaining, but they felt like they needed more.
This is in the
in the documentary.
This is but in the Chinese factory.
Yeah, in the Chinese factory
that was located in America. Gotcha.
It kind of reminded me, for our viewers that watched our previous episode last week.
Great episode.
It was a good episode. I was talking about the things that made me kind of unsatisfied with life being my career. If I'm not focused on doing stuff for my career, I'm not satisfied. And I kind of just wanted, like, I thought about it, and I ruminated about it for a while. And I started to kind of come up with this concept. And with my research that I did for my African art class, because I had a fucking paper due, fucking final. You hate to see it.
But you got it done.
I mean, I got it done. You hate to see it. We got some new followers from it, so it's all worth it.
Yeah, there was like 4 people.
Yeah, there's.
Hey guys.
Hey, if you're watching, what's up, homies?
Oh.
But
okay, yeah, go.
Yeah, but so what I want to talk about was the commodity of time and how we're so focused on progress in the future that I think it's actually become kind of detrimental to our mental health. And so I want to actually start with the how time was constructed in Africa pre-colonialism.
Okay.
So in Africa pre-colonialism, Africans actually didn't have a concept of the future. So there was only a present and a past. There was what they called no time, which was time that, like, things that have not taken place and have, like, no likelihood of occurring would be in no time.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was potential time,
Mm-hmm.
which is things that are going to occur that you know are going to occur.
Mm-hmm.
And actual time, which is just the present and the past. What I kind of thought about was the future is constantly becoming the present, and the present's constantly becoming the past. That's just how we have been known to experience time now. And the past is useful for, like, informing your decisions
Mm-hmm.
for the future and the present. And the future is kind of good for giving goals.
Yeah.
You know, giving, like, directions on your decisions, what you want to do. Is kind of how we direct our life now. But I noticed that the present is the only space in which you can have an actual impact. You can only do things in the present.
Yeah. You can set things up for the future, but you have to literally do those things in the present.
Exactly. It's really the only time in which you have complete control. And I've noticed that the balance between our focus on the past, the present, and the future has skewed very heavily to the future in recent time. Like, when people, like, for example, like, when you, what would be a good example? Entertainment. I think entertainment would be a good example. So I feel like when you order something, I've heard a lot that the anticipation of wanting something almost feels better than when you have it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys ever experienced that?
Oh, absolutely. When I first got my Nintendo Switch, it was right after New Year's. I went to GameStop, traded in a bunch of stuff, ended up having to only pay like $30 for the Switch itself. I bought Skyrim for it, and I bought FIFA for it, and I went home, and for like 10-15 minutes, it was awesome. You're putting it on the TV, you're like, oh, this is awesome, mobile Skyrim, yeah, awesome, man. Even though you can already have that on your laptop, but that's neither here nor there. And then it was like, oh, great, I bought 2 games that I already have, and it was kind of just like the hype of playing those games handheld that I kind of had like hype goggles on. I
feel
had,
you.
I had Switch goggles on, and then I didn't really play my Switch, admittedly, for a little bit. But then I got Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart, and that's when the Fire Nation attacked.
That's when the gaming started.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, and Smash Bros?
Well, yeah, but that wasn't until December.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
You got yours early.
Yeah.
But that was like an example to me of people, like, very super focused on the future and not even the experience of things that are happening.
Anticipation is always, or not always, but more than likely going to be the better part. Like, for instance, when the Saints win a football game, that next week is awesome. And then watching the next football game, if they're not absolutely dominating, it, like, I get a little cynical, because I'm like, this team isn't performing. What is this?
Yeah, but that's like pretty good example of how people today view life in some ways. Like, if something good is happening, and then something okay happens, all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, it's not good.
Yeah.
Even if you're already at a point,
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's actually going to be a big factor in what I'm going to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
So the problem with having a future, like the concept of the future,
yeah,
is the commodification of time, where time becomes money, and also the need for continuous progress.
Well, because then time is you are not you're not doing things to do them. You're doing things to like have things done. If
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, you're not doing it for the actual satisfaction of getting them done. It's
Yeah.
like everything's a step up to
It's
the
just
next
like,
journey.
oh, I got to do this, got to do this, got to do this.
And also for if there's any like actual African researchers in here, I do know that there is time is money is a phrase that has been used in African language before. So it's not that Africans didn't value time back then, but it is very different from how we use time now. Just a caveat. But yeah, because it means that if you don't have constant progress, you deem yourself to be failing. You know, if time is money, then if you're not making money, then you're wasting time. So then if you're not constantly making money, then you're basically designed to be unhappy within our system.
That's why artists are sad.
Yeah, pretty much. Because we're constantly focused on constantly focused on making something new. That progress kind of, no matter how good you are, you'll still always have that needle in the back of your brain just poking you.
What's awful about being in that industry is no matter how good of an artist you are, your success is dictated by other people.
Yeah, that's something.
Like, that's ass.
That's ass, but it does to me give an interesting dynamic to art.
Oh yeah.
In the fact that I can usually judge how good my art is depending on how clear people receive the message, and that's not to say that works for everybody, because some art's not meant to be like perceived in a very specific way or anything like that. But I do find that dynamic
surrealism.
Yeah, the dynamic between like the viewer and the artist I find actually very fascinating.
Yeah.
Just to pipe in, the way I've learned to deal with it is to just think like there are so many people in this world. It's a matter of just finding the people who actually fuck with it. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just a matter of, like how there's like 1 million people in the world. You got to find the 200,000. So just putting it out there. But then that's also the hard part, I think, about probably what you do, because visual arts is very hard to get it in front of.
Yeah, in front of a lot of people.
Yeah, 200,000 people.
That niche.
And also, like, I've learned that, like, just because not everyone's, like, fucking with your work or your message or anything like that doesn't mean it's, like, not good.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, like, I wouldn't judge my success as an artist specifically based off of, like, whether people really like my shit. Because, I mean, we've seen, like, I'm sure we've all seen some art where you're just like, how the fuck are people paying, like,
literally just looks
millions
like
of dollars?
They just took paint and threw it on the canvas.
Yeah, I mean, like Pollock, people like Pollock. Pollock's okay. I have some respect for Pollock, but there are some like artists where you're like looking at it and you're just like, okay,
Bruh.
millions, stick figures, millions.
Jasper Johns.
Yeah, but anyways, that's a tangent. Getting back to it, it's I find that this way of thought is why we plan to make our time, like our use of time, as efficient as possible. And how we determine our happiness is kind of, we look at our time in retrospect and see how much progress we've made, and that'll determine like how this day went. You know, like how much stuff did you get done? And I'm not. I understand that it's necessary, because this isn't like a situation where it's like, oh, we can just throw out the future. Like, obviously not. Like, if we don't have a future, then like we're not going to develop anything. Right. But it is a situation where you're like, how are we balancing our view of the world? And even though we're in like the time of like, you know, highest technology, highest amount of people that have like a good standard of living, we're also like some of the most depressed we've been in like history. You know what I mean? Which is like crazy. It's crazy to think about that. Like, the World Health Organization reports that suicide rates have increased 60% over the past 50 years.
Question.
So,
and this is we shouldn't stay on this for too long because it's potential to spiral out of control. But do you think that people now, suicide rates are higher because people no longer have that like strong instinct to live?
I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, when I talk about this, like depression is a very complex topic, and I'm also not like a. I don't study this. I'm not a psychologist.
You're not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor. So this is all theory. There has been some research, but don't like take it as a grain of salt. This isn't very specific, but I do think that like if you have someone that's like an immigrant that's coming to America to feed his family and get a better life, like these people I don't find are like depressed.
These people.
Oh, these people. I mean, I feel like I use these people and people freak out sometimes, but like
No, I know. You're using shorthand.
yeah, and I do it on purpose sometimes just to rustle the feathers.
This is not on purpose though, right?
That one, no,
Okay.
but it is now. So if you felt a little twinge, get over yourself. I don't know what else to say. But yeah, it's like
That is rather nitpicky if people were to be like, "Hey, man."
Yeah. If that, shut the fuck up. Like people are really all about that type of shit these days. Like it's a microaggression. Like, oh, all right, like chill. Let's just talk about shit for a second.
Facts.
Repeat your question again.
Oh, so because people, it is easier if you are a basic human in the world. It is easier to live now than it was 100, even 50 years ago. So, the need to live, when life was hard and it was harder to live, do you think that that has impacted that our now higher standard of living for people all across the globe? Do you think that has? Do you think that
I got you.
Yeah. Do
I
you
got
think
you.
that has dulled that?
Yeah, I just lost my
Instinct
train
to
of thought for a
survive.
second. But
Yeah.
yeah, what the example of the immigrant is that once people have gotten past the need to survive, like as in like you're in a stable place and you're not worried about where your next meal's coming from, and you're just worried about increasing how well you're living. I
Yeah.
think that's the time when like depression starts to kick in.
Makes sense.
That's the time where you're like all of a sudden you're not increasing your standard of living, and it starts to bug you. Because when you're at the bottom and you're getting higher, like in your social standing in life, it's a continuous increase that's quite easy if you start out from nothing. You know what I mean? Like $1 to a homeless person is a lot different than $1 to a millionaire.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but when we're so focused on that trajectory of progress, and we all know once you get that job, you're not always going to get a raise, and you're not always, things aren't always going to keep increasing, but we're so focused on the progress that we can't enjoy what we've attained.
Right.
Yeah, so as I was saying, but also by 2020, apparently depression will be the second most prevalent medical condition in the world,
Scary.
which is kind of terrifying. So I have a question for you, actually.
Please.
What do you think are, like, amongst your friends and amongst your
My peers.
peers, what do you think are, like, the causes of dissatisfaction and depression that you've seen within people?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with growing up and the values that are instilled in people. So, for instance, when I was younger, there's a lot of value put on doing well in school. And I don't really remember all that much of, like, the importance being on, like, well, are you okay? Up until a certain point, of course.
Got it.
And this is when this is when I was a lot younger. And when my grades started to drop, so did my mental health, because in my head, good grades equal happy Colin, right?
Yeah.
That's my little gold coin I want to get.
Well, that's the same for me, bro.
Yeah.
Back in high school, for sure.
Yeah. So, me personally, when the bottom kind of dropped out on grades, you know, or not dropped out, but when I started getting lower grades, I'm losing motivation because I'm like, damn, I'm not good at this, blah blah blah, like this really sucks.
And are these even like super low grades or just like lower
No.
than you've had before?
Lower than I had before. And gets lower, motivation drops, gets lower, motivation drops, and then the bottom just drops out, and I just like had just honestly stopped giving a fuck. And it wasn't until I changed my environment and I felt was able and comfortable to be myself that it was like, oh, yeah, this school stuff is actually pretty good, and I'm actually pretty good at it. Too bad it wasn't until senior year of high school, but yeah. What are other things? I think people. I have seen people both work themselves into being depressed, and people, you know, not working, and that lack of progress leading to being depressed.
Yeah, I definitely feel you on both of those.
Yeah.
It actually kind of that example actually perfectly ties into I have like a theory.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take that pass right there.
There we go. So my theory is that people become depressed when they feel dissatisfied in their place within their system, and they feel they can't change it. So this is also when going back to the school example, like you felt dissatisfied with your progress in school, even though I've always known you to have good grades. So whatever grades you weren't getting were already better than most people.
Yeah.
Most
High school, like even freshman years, like I was not on a roll.
yeah, but you weren't failing, right?
I did not fail anything
You-
freshman year.
Yeah, but there are people. But I'm saying there are people that are legit failing like every class.
I failed French. I failed French sophomore year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I failed trigonometry junior year, but that was due to lack of effort, not due to lack of trying.
Yeah.
It's also failing trigonometry. Like, it's not failing, like, you know, history.
Or algebra 1.
Yeah, or...
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
you're not wrong. Okay.
Yeah, but basically, it's the fact is that even though you would be doing better than a lot of people, you would still be depressed, despite having a better aptitude than some people in school.
I got you.
And then it's about once you start having a downward trajectory, that's all you can think about, regardless of where you are. You
Yeah.
know, and that kind of really just fits into the narrative that once you're declining within your system,
Yeah.
and you'll be okay because it'll just be a lack of motivation, but it'll start spiraling. But the biggest spiral happens when you're like, oh, I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And that's when people hit rock bottom, and that's when depression like really kicks in.
Yeah. When you're doing nothing and you're depressed, that's the worst bit.
It's the stagnation.
Yeah. Like I mean, I don't know. I'm not currently stagnant. I'm doing a lot of stuff.
No, we're
but-
definitely progressing. I mean, we have
Yeah.
the podcast.
Yeah, yeah. But there are definitely some times where I'm not doing anything. But like I'm not depressed about it.
I mean, it's all perspective, because to some people, stagnant could be making 120K a year.
Yeah.
And just continuously making that money, and your life goes into a routine, and you're stagnant, and all of a sudden you feel depressed. So it's not always relevant on how good you are, where you are in the social standing, which is, to me, like kind of crazy and kind of a failure of the system.
The system of society, I would say.
Well, I would say it's specifically like capitalism was a response to our need to have continuous progress. So, but it's not a perfect system.
Well, I think that there's so much value placed on efficiency. And that just drives people into the fucking ground.
But That's the efficiency is because you want the maximum outcome with the time that you have.
Capitalism, baby.
That's efficiency. But the thing is, it all ties back to time. And I've also researched some stuff, and people say that the higher your social position, also the healthier you are. So it turns out that your perspective, not your actual, your perspective on your social rank can directly tie into your health. And, that includes obviously depression and also chronic illnesses. But it's like people's subjective view on their socioeconomic status is incredibly important on like your life expectancy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, because unfortunately in America we do not have universal health care, so that's a slice of that in America. Being able to actually go to the doctor and being able to pay for it.
Yeah, and I do want to say that like Africa not having a concept of the future isn't like just a good thing. You know what I mean? Like the future does give us our goals and it gives us our direction. But I think frequently we become static focusing on all the things that we can do, we should do, we want to do. And I think with like the vastness of the future, because the future is infinite, You can do in your mind, you can do as many things as you want to in the future. You plan your day. A lot of people like we don't actually finish what we want to accomplish in the day because in the future you can do everything. And I think
you have the potential to.
You have the potential to do everything. But if you
I could be president of the goddamn United States.
Yeah, if you're like, hey, 50 years down the road, I want to be president. Like that's something that has potential. It's the future. Yeah. Anything can happen.
And I may not be tall, but I'm white, so it's 1 foot.
Going for it.
One foot in the door, man.
Pretty much, maybe a foot and half.
Yeah, right.
Half another leg, bro.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, like when we're consumed by the future and the vastness of it, I think the present passes us by, without us realizing. And the most important time should always be the present. And even though there should be a balance, the present should always be most important. And one thing when I looked back on the podcast last week, I thought to myself, like, how scary would a future be where the present is largely irrelevant to one's happiness, and it only serves as like a distraction to this like omnipresent discomfort you feel from not progressing.
That sounds like me being depressed watching Marvel movies at 14, trying to be like, yeah, this is awesome. I mean, it was awesome, but
Yeah, but I feel like that's like we're heading towards that trajectory, and no matter how many developments we have in technology to help us entertain ourselves or make our lives better, I feel that is something that we have not found a solution for.
I mean, I actually don't think that's true.
You don't think you think that we found a solution for it?
I think some people have. I think people who prioritize having a good balance of finding things that make them happy, and having the other half of being like, all right, well, yeah, I'm gonna do bong rips Saturday night, but Monday to Friday I'm gonna be in the office, getting shit done. I think the people that have found the balance of relaxation and work that suits them in a way that's still productive is those are kind of the people that have found it.
No, I totally agree. I mean, like, not everyone has depression. Depression is like not like a huge thing. I'm sure like a lot of people listening or might be like, oh yeah, I don't even know. This might not even be like relevant to you. But it's the fact that the system that we live in, that I hate saying the system or like society and stuff like that, because I feel like those are kind of like overplayed terms in some way. But the system that we live in,
okay, boomer.
The system that we live in isn't focused on making us happy. And in the trajectory that we're heading towards, I think it'll become a problem, and the solutions that people have made towards it aren't necessarily using the system in the way that it's intended to be used in terms of capitalism. Like, it's not just like capitalism is you gain more, you're more happy because you have more things. But the solutions people have found is outside of that, which is why I feel there's no real system that we have that we could use as a model to make sure this isn't like that we can change the outcome.
Well, I don't know if there's. Well, you're right when you say there's not a system, and that's why I said society earlier. Because there's no blueprint of how to really. There's no specific thing that's like, yep, go to this high school and answer this on the test and you'll get an A and blah 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 blah, and then you'll go to college and high school and blah 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 blah, and here's the job you'll get.
No, I feel you. It doesn't have to be like, when I say a system, I don't mean like a system of like your plans of life, the steps you make towards life, but more in that a system of philosophy of thought in which we can normally be comfortable with what we're doing. Does that make? I'm not sure if that makes sense. But
No, I think it does.
yeah, because like when we're going and we're focusing on getting better grades and we're like, oh, we just need to get better grades. I think that's actually kind of unhealthy. If your life is solely focused on, I need to get better grades, because then, as you said, like, you start declining in grades, all of a sudden everything falls apart,
Yeah, because you have so much value placed on it.
But it's so much value placed on the progress, on getting better.
Yeah.
If you were satisfied with just getting whatever grades, then you'd be fine. It wouldn't even be an issue. But it's the need to constantly improve, get better.
And when we plateau, we crash.
Yeah, and it's when you plateau, you crash. Doesn't even matter at whatever height you've gotten to.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I feel we need to really address for the coming future. And I don't have that much research in it. I've just been thinking about it. So,
Yeah.
like, to combat.
What do you got for us?
What I got to combat this, I do think we need to focus
Smells good.
more on the present, as I was kind of mentioning before. Like, what can we do day to day that leads us to whatever one future goal or whatever multiple future goals, but what can we do day to day rather than being completely consumed by the possibilities? Because the present is fundamentally limited.
Yeah.
You can only be doing one thing at a time, and well, maybe you can be doing multiple things if you're good at multitasking. But multitasking for most people is actually inefficient. Do know that there's actually a very small population of people that can successfully multitask.
I feel like the present is the most finite renewable resource we have.
Explain.
Why? It's the most finite renewable resource. It is so fleeting, yet we have so much of it.
That's actually very true. We're constantly burning it up, but it's always there.
Always there.
And
until we're not here.
Yeah, but I think
Yeah, you like that.
But I think that we need to be using that fuel, because if you're burning up that fuel and you're not actually making it into anything, it's just being wasted despite us having it our whole lives.
Turns to poison.
Yeah, it really does, because once you realize that you're continuously wasting it, it's a downward spiral.
You know what that's kind of like?
What?
It's kind of like hope.
Yeah.
Like if you just keep hoping, and then the same shit keeps happening. Ooh.
Yeah.
That shit's gonna.
That's soul crushing.
That is soul crushing.
Yeah, but I think we need to be. If we focus more on the present, I feel like we'd also just be more productive. Because I was a bit down on my shits, because I was like, I don't know like how much progress I'm making sometimes, and I don't know if I can't tell where I'm headed. The future is cloudy, and I didn't really realize that the future is meant to be cloudy. There's never meant to be an easy way or a clear path, and the door that appears to your future can appear at any time,
This is the way.
but you can't I can't have the foresight to see it. And the way that I kind of got past it was like I took a step back, and I looked at myself, like honestly, and I was like, well, how have I been to my friends? How have I been to my family? Have I actually been doing good work?
That's self-awareness.
Yeah, and I also looked at like, where am I? Like what if I've had so many good things happen to me. I've been so fortunate in so many things.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about it and I was like, yeah, like I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And I think it's that moment where you can say that you're okay with the situation, and when you can accept where you are and that you should be happy.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not progressing in my current state in the moment, I think I should be happy. And
I also think that people don't give themselves enough credit for working hard.
that's definitely true.
People will go home miserable after like grinding for an entire day. And and I get that you're tired as shit, but like you got to reward yourself after a day like that.
It's
Like-
because you don't think of like what you've done.
Yeah.
You just think of what you have to do next.
Yeah. Or it's like, great. Like I worked really hard today and and I'm not going to really get anything for working that hard as much as like the next person over from me. Like there's nothing. Everyone else is like trying to work just as hard. So like when I bust my ass, nobody at work is going to give me anything extra. And I am not suggesting that my work does not reward hard work. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when people do that, and they don't take a step back and say like, I may not have fruits for my effort right now, but I'm busting my ass. I am trying my hardest. And yeah, I think people need to just realize that is, again, sometimes trying is more important than actually getting it done.
I know. And I think that we
For the
need
experience.
like the idea that you can be working in the present and be satisfied, I think is something that we should be teaching. Because it's something that a lot of people discover, but it's not something that we're told. Because we're told that if the better you're doing, the more you should value yourself. And I think that if we taught people that you should be focused on being satisfied with what you're doing at a given time, being satisfied with what you're doing and focusing on doing things that make you satisfied in the moment, I think that we would have very different like views in education. And I think what we value today would also be very different.
I feel like with education especially, it's so split between they're on two sides of this. They're on the opposite sides of the spectrum in terms of education. And what I mean by that is everything is either very short term or very long term.
Oh, for sure.
And like there's not a lot in between. Like grades are very important, both very short term and very long term, because having honors like throughout school can be the difference between getting into a great college and not a great college,
But I think it's the long term that kind of hurts us. Because think right, if we had
I'm not disagreeing.
no,
with you.
I don't think you're I'm just saying like if you think of it in the concept of like if there was no future except maybe 2 months ahead, then you getting it, our system of education would be like you getting that good grade and connecting that to you going to college, there would be no connection to that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we should, like, that's useful, but that long string of, oh, you doing this is the reason why you'll get into college, or you doing something else is the reason that you'll have a successful life. Like that thought process, I think, is damaging because it makes how we go about developing more rigid.
Yeah. No.
Because
yeah.
it's saying that this is the plan to success and happiness, but we know that that's not true.
Yeah.
It's saying that there's a clear-cut path when there's no clear-cut path, and we all fucking
It's like,
know it.
hey, I'm doing this and I'm fucking depressed. What's going on?
Yeah, but I'm like, we need to change how we fundamentally view success and merit.
For sure.
And some people might say like, oh, well, like, it's not like we can like get rid of time or the future. But I will say that my dad told me something the other day that did stick with me, and it was a quote that he remembered, and it said, "A child wastes no time because they live in the present."
Yeah.
So it's not that we're born with the notion that the future is incredibly important.
Instilled.
It's entirely instilled. So I think if you can look back on yourself and what you've done, and you're not happy with fundamentally who you are as a person, that's when you should be looking at doing things to change yourself. But if you can look back on yourself and really be like, hey, I've done good things, I have good prospects, I'm a pretty good person, you know, then I think people should value that. And
yeah, no, I completely agree. And again, I think that ties back into kind of self-awareness of what I mentioned that earlier. I think it's so important to have that, to recognize both your actions and what the effect they have on you and other people. And I think if people had better self-awareness, it'd be a different fucking world.
It'd be a totally different world. And for the people listening, if they want to somewhat implement some of this thinking in their life, I would say, think about your balance of your past, present, and future, and what you think about on the regular. Like, how much time are you spending thinking about things that you should do?
Yeah.
And think about it.
And what are you? How much emotion are you tying into your thoughts?
Yeah. And also, how much are you looking back in the past and thinking of the things that you just did?
Yeah.
Because people continuously just throw it away.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's done and people forget about it.
Or the opposite sense, where people look back on their past and they're thinking about their past so much that they just like that they're not in the present.
Yeah.
And they can't move on.
But I think we should be consciously thinking about how we're balancing what we're thinking about in the time, and definitely focus on the present would be something that should be more thought about. One other thing I've noticed, I think a good example in today's political culture, if you've been paying attention to politics, is that wealth inequality is such a largely talked about topic. People think the problem is like there's a small amount of rich people that exist, while there's a huge amount of poor people that exist, and they think that's a problem. And while it is, I don't think people sometimes realize that that's literally like the intention of capitalism.
Yeah.
That's like literally its function.
Yeah.
So you're fighting against the innate nature of the system that you're working in. It's not like you can change this within capitalism. And I'm not saying I'm not socialist or anything like that. By the way, I'm not. I don't know the better system than capitalism.
It's like trickle up economics.
Yeah, but like say you take away all the money from the rich and gave it to the poor, even though we do know that the rich, unless it's inherited, did work hard for their money.
Right.
Or even if it is inherited, their parents did work hard for that money.
Somebody.
and you take it away,
Unless
then
they won the law alert.
there becomes no incentive to work, right? Like imagine you gained all these. You're working to gain money, which is what we're doing really, and it just all gets taken away. Then why would you try? You
Unless
may
you're
as
a
well
priest.
you may as well be working. You may as well not try hard, and in that way you destroy merit.
Mm.
So like I mean we all watched The Incredibles 1. We all watched it, you know. If everyone's super, no one is.
Mm.
It's the same thing with money.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to how deep that fucking movie is.
That movie does hit on some levels. Oh, you know what? Disney Plus. You know.
Oh, we gotta have a Incredibles 2 also fantastic, fucking tastic. But like I don't want like if you're rich, don't get too happy, because like
Yeah.
let's like I'm not gonna leave y'all.
And if you're happy, give a lot to charity.
Yeah, like
Don't be a dick.
I'm about to dunk on y'all too. Like I think rich people should be like taxed to fucking hell in some way,
Yeah.
because we know that the proposed taxes that people are talking about right now is not going to even fucking dent them. And the only reason they're not taxed more is because they have control in the government because they have money.
Oh yeah.
And it's a completely self-revolutionary system that's meant to keep people down.
Yeah.
Like we're like let's not pretend like that's not a fact.
Yeah.
Like the winners are meant to keep winning.
Real quick, just about that taxes. Do you remember? I'm gonna get closer to one of these mics. Bill Gates was complaining about the new Elizabeth Warren taxes, and he was like, "Well, if I, have to give up $100 billion, what am I gonna live off of?" And it's like, I don't know, the 600 million, like, or what is it? I don't remember what it was. Like some 600, like
Probably billion.
like some of the,
Some certain
like
number.
a million, like or
That's a lot of
probably
money.
$1 billion, like $1 billion. Like if I have to give up $1 billion, it's like, well, what am I gonna live off of? Well, I don't know, bro. Maybe the $6 billion that is left. Like you're not like, I'm not sure exactly what you mean when you say like, yo, what am I gonna live off of? Like, bro, you got
Bill Gates estimated net worth $107.4 billion.
yeah. So,
That's
bro, if
nasty
you
to
take
an
off
extent.
$1 billion off the top of that, like, bro, what are you talking about?
You're
Like,
not losing
Like,
anything.
and also, we're not even talking about taking that much money. We're talking about a small amount of that.
Yeah, I
Bro.
mean, like, and I'm just sometimes when I look at things like the way
James
that
is annoyed.
that we try to rationalize, like capitalism. We try to make it so that we're gonna do good things, like that. Like, all right, I'm out of. That's why we have like
Go
non-for-profits who give money to causes by pandering to the rich as they auction off their own shit, so they can feel better about themselves.
True.
And yes, because most non-for-profits are actually for profit, and because they're also controlled by rich people because it's a fucking company. Who else has the money? It's just, I'm gonna just make a company that's not made from money and then somehow give millions of dollars to causes. Like, no, like that's not how it works. And I'm not saying that all non-for-profits are bad, but I'm saying let's really be conscious of the systems that are functioning within capitalism. It's not like non-for-profit means it's not functioning capitalism. But that's kind of getting off topic. But the problem I see with wealth inequality, which is like exacerbated by social media, is definitely that people compare themselves to those that are doing better than them. And that's like a major cause of unhappiness. And it's constantly shoved in our faces. Constantly shoved in our faces. Even in our advertisements. Think of it, right? Like when they're advertising something, they'll show some beautiful person in this beautiful life, and they're saying like, oh, if you get this product, you can live this life.
Makes sense.
Like it's within advertising, it's within everything. It's ridiculous that we are, even though it's so detrimental to our mental health, we still use it to capitalize on everything.
Because it's what we know.
It's what works, because we're aiming for efficiency. We're not aiming for happiness. We're
Yeah.
aiming for how can we make the most amount of money. And if that means preying on people's self-esteem, go in. Like if you guys ever watch a commercial and just dissect it for a bit, and you will definitely notice that that they're definitely trying to manipulate you by showing you a better life that they associate with the product that they're trying to sell you. And I think that really sucks.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Slaves in American slavery were slaves, or maybe internationally too, as depressed as we are today. And I won't get into it. That'll be another topic because I feel like we could talk about that.
That is a timely topic that deserves the time.
But one specific thing that ties into this conversation is when people always ask, like, why didn't the slaves take over their the plantation? And there are many reasons, but one of the specific reasons I want to focus on was that even if the slaves did take over the plantation, they had no way of knowing how to exist outside of slavery.
Yeah.
They had
or
no
like even how to defend the plantation.
Yeah, they had no way of picturing a future outside of slavery.
Yeah, like what are you gonna do when a fucking colonial militia marches up your ass?
Yeah, there's no example.
Exactly.
There's not like there were like black slave masters. I mean, the real reasons they went to the north is because there was all of a sudden there was hope of a different life. You know, and that's
Don't go to Boston.
But yeah, and I was thinking about that, and I thought maybe in the future when we have a different system, they'll look at us and see us as slaves to capitalism in that sense. Because the reason we have capitalism is because we can't conceive of a better metric.
Kanye called it.
Yeah, so I damn. Semi shout outs to Kanye? I don't know, like, but
old Kanye. Not new.
old Kanye. But yeah, so when I think of people being enslaved to capitalism in that way, I'm like, maybe someday there'll be something different. But a tie-in would be when I talked about entertainment earlier, and that I'm not sure if I did talk about this, but our entertainment is actually focused on progress as well. Yeah. Like, if you think of it like when you're playing video games, the point of the video game is to beat the video game.
To progress.
Yeah. I mean, there's sandbox games, but a lot of our entertainment is based on getting more things. A good example, I think, is sports, because sports have always existed throughout time.
Right.
And when you think of it, if you really think about it, if you think of soccer or any of these sports, they're actually not focused naturally on progress. You know, you play the game, and then whoever wins.
Yeah, but you progress through tournaments.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Oh, okay.
But tournaments have not always existed, right?
Yeah.
So, in a way, we take sports and we make them about progress when we make leagues and we make whatever it may be, tournaments, a system, because we made sports into a way which it can exist within the new system of like capitalism and stuff like that. I'm sure leagues have always existed, but we turned it into a sport where you have to have progress.
So that's a good segue into our next intro. We're going to talk about the New Orleans Saints last night. But first, an ad read. Hey guys, just wanted to announce to you guys that we are now available on 8 platforms. Yes, that is 8. We are on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Radio Public, Spotify, and there's one more, but it's not showing me. Oh well. Anyway, please find us on Instagram at plan_C_podcast. You can find us on Twitter at the same handle. Also, we seem to have issues with Spotify and people searching for us. So, if you're having problems listening, I guess it's kind of moot, because if you're listening on Spotify, you already know how to find us. Anyway, if you're having problems finding us, just go to Anchor FM Plan C podcast. What's the read? Oh, I messed up the read. I didn't have it in front of me.
Now we gotta get him. We gotta get him.
No,
Because he got me before.
That's fine.
We gotta got
No,
me before.
leave it in. Leave it in.
Feel the burn. Feel the burn.
No, that's fine. I'm not embarrassed. Anchor.fm/plan-c-podcast. That is where you can find us. You can find direct links to all of the platforms I have listed. We will soon be available on YouTube. And let's get to the topic. All right, guys. Last night, something I am very thankful for happened.
What is it?
The New Orleans Saints went into Atlanta, Georgia. And they cooked the Falcons. Cooked them.
Good shit.
Cooked. Fucked. Whatever you want to say.
Destroyed.
Annihilated. Had them distraught.
Eviscerated.
Anything you want to say. Had them on the wrought iron gridiron.
Made them stub their motherfucking toes, bro.
And they're birds, so that's hard. So, from the eye test, this wasn't a great game to watch for the Saints, if I'm being honest. It was a great defensive performance by them. They had 9 sacks, I believe 4 total turnovers, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles. Oh, excuse me. And 1 savage stiff arm from a man named Shy. So I was pretty hype about that. So the implications going forward with this win is the New Orleans Saints are your 2019 NFC South divisional champions. What that means they're going to the playoffs. They have a home game in the playoffs, and out of the 6 seeds for the playoffs, they cannot have lower seed than 4. And the team that's currently in the 4 seed is dog shit. So
Who's in the 4th seed?
the Cowboys,
Yeah.
who the Saints have already beaten. Thank you very much. Yeah. And so along with that is kind of relief. You know, you make the playoffs. It's early in the season. You don't want to rest on your laurels because you want to get good positioning for the playoffs. But this is fucking big. This is big. Go win the division 3 years in a row. Happy about that. I'm not so happy about the running back for the Saints. His name is Alvin Kamara. He did not perform last night like I wanted him to because I own him in fantasy. And I need to win this game in fantasy or else I am not in the playoffs. Nope. Me. I know.
Yeah. The most important person.
Precisely.
Player 1. Bro.
Player 1. I have Christian McCaffrey. How could it not happen? Anyway. All right. That's my bit about the Saints. I don't know. I didn't talk that much about them. Thoughts I had on them. I thought they couldn't run the ball at all. It didn't appear anyway. Besides Taysom Hill running it out of the backfield, but can't do that every time. I thought Drew Brees looked decent when he had protection. He also was able to get the ball out pretty fast. Left side of the line is pretty injured, but they held up, so happy about that. Defense looked pretty great, minus penalties. Yeah, so overall, great game. Special teams, besides those onside kicks, good job by you. Yeah.
Was genuinely actually fun to watch all those interceptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those onside kicks at the end were pretty crazy.
2 in a row, bro.
Yeah.
2 in a row.
Young Ho Koo from South Korea.
Curved.
Oh yeah, he definitely hooked some field goals, but at the end of the game he gave them a chance. So you got to throw some respect on his name.
Yeah. I don't know. 2 hooks in a. That's not really.
But he
usual
put them in position for 14 more points. So.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's the podcast. Cameron, have you got anything else for anyone? Got anything to plug?
No real plugs. Not yet. Julian's here. Shout out to Snakebone. He's here.
Snakebone, buy his art. He's got some really cool stuff. I bought a really cool samurai frog freshman year, and I still have it.
What's the @ on Instagram?
At Snakebone.
I'm sorry, at snakebone_. There's an underscore at the end. That's the show. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. So the plan is to drop this on Thursday, 3 p.m. We'll be on YouTube soon. Check us out on all the platforms. Like, follow, rate, subscribe. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Send us your thoughts. We are at plancpod@gmail.com.
Yeah, if you guys have any thoughts on what we've talked about, like maybe you have some experiences you want to share, or maybe you've dealt with some of this stuff, please don't hesitate to send us some messages. You know, we'll see what we can do.
Also, quick shout out to some people. I was looking at, you know, because as the publisher of this pod, I can see what states and like what cities are listening. So shout out to Vermont. Somebody in Vermont was listening. Somebody in Colorado was listening. So shout out to you, whoever you were. We appreciate it. We had North Carolina, someplace called Arden, North Carolina. Who knows? Where else? Did we have anywhere else? Illinois, but that's Tommy. Shout out our boy Tommy.
Tommy.
Holding it down in the shy.
And Colorado?
We appreciate you.
Did you say Colorado?
I did say Colorado.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. That's the show. We appreciate y'all. Hope everyone had a great holiday. Talk to you soon.
Peace.